now has 3,528 points in her career.
Caitlyn Clark just walked into the biggest room in basketball, and nobody was ready for what happened next. For months, they said she wasn't ready. They left her off the roster. They called it a decision. But on March 11th, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Clark didn't just show up. She showed everyone exactly why that argument was never going to die quietly. The crowd went crazy. The internet broke. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise, something shifted in women's basketball that cannot be undone. This isn't just a debut. This is a turning point, and the full story is more complicated than anyone is telling you. Stay with us, because what happened next will change how you see this game forever. She was always too big to ignore. Caitlyn Clark did not ease her way into professional basketball. She detonated into it. The numbers tell part of the story. During her time at Iowa, Clark became the all-time leading scorer in NCAA Division I history, men's or women's.
Here comes Clark. How will she go for history? The all-time leading scorer in women's college basketball.
That's not a women's basketball record. That's the record, full stop. She passed Pete Maravich, a name that had sat at the top of that list for over 44 years. And she did it in a building that was shaking so hard you could feel it through a television screen. But the records alone don't explain what made Clark different. Plenty of players put up big numbers in college and disappear into professional basketball without a ripple. Clark did the opposite. She made people who had never watched a women's basketball game in their life sit down and watch one. She made neutral arenas feel like home games. She made opposing fans show up early just to watch warm-ups. That's not something a stat line captures. That's something you either have or you don't. When she entered the WNBA as the first overall pick for the Indiana Fever in 2024,
be the biggest female star.
Who's the best female collegiate player?
With the first pick, the Indiana Fever select.
the attention didn't slow down. It accelerated. Road games that used to draw modest crowds were suddenly selling out. Arenas that hadn't seen that kind of energy in years were packed to the top row. Ticket prices on the secondary market were climbing to numbers that would make you double-check the screen. The Fever's road games were drawing larger audiences than some playoff games had the previous season. And that's not normal. That's not even close to normal. Clark averaged 19.2 points, 8.4 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game in her rookie season numbers that put her in conversations nobody had expected to have about a first-year player. She won Rookie of the Year.
Caitlyn Clark has been named WNBA Rookie of the Year, the #1 overall pick.
She was named to the All-Star team. She broke the WNBA single-season assists record. The Fever, a franchise that had struggled for years to find a consistent footing, suddenly had a waiting list for season tickets and a national television audience tuning in on weeknights. But here's the part that gets interesting. Even while all of that was happening, even while she was breaking records and filling seats and doing things that no first-year player had done in recent memory, she was not on Team USA. The 2024 Olympic roster was finalized without her name on it. The selection committee made their choice, and Clark wasn't it. The reaction to that decision was loud.
What was your level of disappointment not hearing your name on the roster?
Honestly, no disappointment.
Immediately loud. And it didn't come from just her fan base. It came from analysts, former players, coaches, and casual observers who looked at what she was doing on the floor every single night and couldn't reconcile it with the empty spot on the national roster. The argument didn't die after the Olympics ended. If anything, it kept growing. Every highlight Clark put up, every game that felt different when she was on the floor, it kept feeding the same question. How is she not on the national team? That question finally got its answer on February 11, 2026. USA Basketball announced the 12-player roster for the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup qualifying tournament, set for March 11th through 17th in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Caitlyn Clark's name was on it, and the reaction was immediate. Comment sections blew up within minutes. Sports shows spent entire segments breaking it down. Fans who hadn't followed the WNBA closely were suddenly paying attention to a qualifying tournament most people would have scrolled past 6 months ago. That's the Caitlyn Clark effect, and it doesn't clock out.
Caitlyn Clark helped achieve at Iowa for the last couple of years those remarkable ratings, the women's tournament outrating the men.
The roster that looks like a warning. When you look at who USA Basketball put together for this tournament, one thing becomes very clear very fast. This is not a team built to survive. This is a team built to attack. The roster carries veterans who have won at every level. Chelsea Gray, a two-time WNBA champion with the Las Vegas Aces, is one of the most composed players in the game, someone who controls tempo like a chess player controls pieces. Kelsey Plum, also from the Aces, brings one of the most dangerous offensive skill sets in the league. Jackie Young, another Aces product, gives the team length, versatility, and efficiency. Kalia Copper, who won the 2024 Olympic gold medal, brings intensity and the ability to score in ways that don't show up cleanly on a stat sheet. And then there are the newer names. Angel Reese, who built a massive platform during her college years at LSU and carried it into her professional career, is on this roster. Paige Buchers, who just came off a national championship run at UConn.
The emotion pouring out of Paige Buchers as she hugs the entire UConn coaching staff.
Is here as well. First-timers and young stars mixed in with championship-tested veterans. And then there's Clark. The style this roster is built for, fast, pressure-heavy, heavy on movement, and quick decisions, is almost exactly the way Clark plays her best basketball. She thrives in transition. She makes passes before most players even see the opening. Her range on the three-point line means defenses can't sag off her. In a tournament with a compressed schedule and teams that won't have time to adjust, she isn't just a fit. She might be the exact player this system was designed around. The tournament itself features 6 teams: USA, Puerto Rico, Italy, New Zealand, Senegal, and Spain. 6 teams, 1 week, 1 qualifying spot on the line. Fast games, high stakes, no time to hide. Which brings up the question that has already consumed every basketball podcast and comment section that has touched this topic. Does she start? There is no easy answer. If she starts and struggles, people will say she wasn't ready. If she starts and shines...
Now Clark down the lane. Nice deal to Stunkey, up and second free throw off the mark.
People will reopen every argument about 2024. If she doesn't start and plays well off the bench, someone will argue she's being disrespected. And if she comes off the bench and the offense stalls without her, a different set of people will make a different argument. The attention is built in, no matter what happens. And at this particular moment in time, attention is not a small thing. It's everything. The fight behind the scenes. Here's where the story gets heavier than just basketball. While Clark was preparing to put on the national jersey, at the WNBA and its players' union were in the middle of intense collective bargaining agreement negotiations, the kind of conversations that determine salaries, travel conditions, benefits, and the basic structure of how players are treated by the league they work for.
The league commissioner had previously alluded to an extension, saying that's how a deal was reached for their last collective bargaining agreement.
The 2025 CBA talks had already stretched longer than expected. By early 2026, both sides were still exchanging proposals with language that wasn't exactly warm. Reuters reported that the players' union had lowered portions of its financial ask, but the league responded by calling the offer unrealistic. The season start date was reportedly set for May 8, 2026, which meant the window for resolution was getting smaller by the day. To understand why this matters, you have to understand what a work stoppage actually costs a league like the WNBA. It's not just lost ticket revenue, it's lost broadcast time, lost sponsor activations, a lost social media momentum, lost casual fans who tuned in for the first time last season and were just starting to build a habit around watching. Those fans are the hardest to win back because they came in without loyalty and they'll leave without guilt. When professional leagues and player unions can't agree, work stoppages happen. Games get canceled, seasons get shortened, revenue disappears. Momentum, the kind that takes years to build, can evaporate in a matter of weeks. The WNBA had spent years building toward a moment where the attention matched the product on the floor. Sellouts, record ratings, mainstream coverage, real sponsorship money. That didn't happen overnight. It happened because players like Clark,
Clark going to her left. This handoff, you know what she's going to do. It doesn't matter how.
Breanna Stewart, A'ja Wilson, and others made the game impossible to look away from. Each of those players brought something different. Wilson brought dominance, Stewart brought versatility, Clark brought an audience that had never watched a WNBA game in their life and suddenly couldn't stop. That last part is the piece that changes the negotiation math entirely. Losing games to a work stoppage right now would be a different kind of damage than it would have been 5 years ago. 5 years ago, a shortened WNBA season barely registered outside of hardcore fans. Today, it would be a headline on outlets that don't normally cover women's basketball at all. That's how much the landscape has shifted. And that shift didn't happen because the league got lucky. It happened because specific players built specific audiences through years of work that the previous CBA never came close to compensating fairly. That's the core argument the players' union is making. The league grew, the attention grew, the revenue grew, the contracts didn't grow at the same rate, and now both sides are sitting across from each other, trying to agree on what that growth is actually worth. So when Clark got added to Team USA at exactly this moment, it wasn't just a sports story, it was leverage living, breathing, nationally televised leverage. Clark on a Team USA roster means a spotlight on women's basketball that doesn't need the WNBA season to exist. It means ratings, it means global attention during a qualifying tournament that most casual fans wouldn't have followed otherwise. One, it means the argument for investing in this league is really investing in it at the level the moment demands just got harder to dismiss at any negotiating table. That pressure lands on both sides, and both sides know it. The NBC move that changed the math. In late January 2026, NBC Sports made a quiet announcement that didn't get treated like the earthquake it actually was. Caitlyn Clark would serve as a special contributor for NBA coverage on NBC Sports.
Caitlyn Clark going toe-to-toe with the biggest women's basketball stars on the biggest stage.
Sam Flood, NBC Sports executive producer, said she was one of the most iconic and captivating figures in the sport. And just like that, Clark was sitting at an NBA desk, talking about the game, breaking down film, sounding completely comfortable in a room that had nothing to do with the WNBA schedule. Think about what that actually means. NBC isn't a small stage. This is the same network that carried the NBA through the Michael Jordan era. The same platform that shaped how an entire generation understood professional basketball. When NBC came back to NBA coverage, it was already a big deal. And the fact that they wanted Clark at that desk, not as a guest, not as a novelty, but as a contributor, says something very specific about how the broader sports world is starting to see her. Her presence in sports media is no longer tied to whether the WNBA is in season. She can exist on one of the biggest broadcasting platforms in the country, in front of an audience that may have only known her name in passing, and she can do it with the same ease she shows on the court. The audience watching NBA games on NBC is enormous, and a portion of that audience, even a small portion, discovering Clark through that platform is new eyes that didn't exist before. Here's the thing about new eyes. They don't come with existing loyalties. They don't have a team they already root for in the WNBA. They just see a person who clearly understands basketball, who speaks about the game with confidence and detail, and who holds the camera's attention without trying. That's a very different kind of introduction than a highlight clip. A highlight clip makes you famous. A desk appearance makes you credible. When people in sports talk about market size, this is what they mean. A player who only exists within their league's bubble has a ceiling. A player who can travel across media platforms, who works in different rooms and still commands the same attention, that player's market doesn't have the same ceiling. For the WNBA's ongoing CBA conversations, this isn't a small detail, it's a signal. The biggest name in the league is proving that her value extends beyond the league's own schedule. Other sports have seen this pattern before. When a player's brand outgrows the league's own footprint,
Clark with another jumper.
Do what they do best, generating offense out of their defense.
the entire conversation about compensation changes. Teams, sponsors, and broadcasters start doing different math. And different math leads to different offers. That's not disrespect to the WNBA. That's a data point about what the sport's top players are worth in an open market. And open markets don't care about what the previous contract said, and it changes what leverage looks like for everyone involved. Players, owners, watching the league itself. Clark didn't make a speech about it. She didn't hold a press conference or post a statement. She just showed up, sat down, and did the work. That's how markets shift, not with announcements, but with proof. And the proof is getting harder to argue with every single week. San Juan is different. March 11th through 17th, 2026. San Juan, Puerto Rico. 6 nations, 1 week. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Caitlyn Clark steps onto an international floor for the first time in a USA basketball uniform.
Now, me as a fan of Caitlyn Clark, I would have loved to see her on this international stage.
On paper, this is a qualifying tournament. Teams are competing for spots in the 2026 FIBA Women's World Cup. The stakes are real, but the setting is not the Olympics. It's not the World Cup itself. In the full timeline of international basketball, this is a stepping stone. But context doesn't care about timelines. Every possession Clark plays in San Juan will be clipped, analyzed, debated, and when shared across every platform that covers sports. Every play, good or bad, feeds a different corner of the conversation. First-time international pressure. Veterans watching a newcomer navigate a faster game with less room for error. A coach deciding how to manage minutes in a compressed schedule with high stakes and no margin. International basketball plays differently from the WNBA. The court spacing changes. The defensive rules shift. The physical contact that gets called in domestic play gets let go on the international floor. Players who dominate in their home league sometimes need time to recalibrate when the rule set changes underneath them. Clark has never played at this level before. That's not a knock, it's just a fact. And facts have a way of showing up loudly during a tournament with no warm-up period and no room to find your footing quietly.
Clark, she fires, and it goes! She hits!
The questions aren't going away. Does she start? How many minutes does she play? Well, how does she handle the physicality of international defense? How do the veterans respond to playing alongside the player who has been at the center of every conversation about this sport for 2 years? These aren't tabloid questions. They're real basketball questions, and they will get real basketball answers in real time, in front of cameras, with the whole world watching. There's something else happening here too. Puerto Rico is not a random location for this story, and the island has a passionate basketball culture and a deep connection to the sport at every level. Puerto Rican basketball fans are not passive crowds. They are loud, educated about the game, and completely willing to let you know when something on the floor isn't good enough. Playing there means playing in front of an audience that knows exactly what they're watching, and that will bring energy regardless of the matchup. For a player making her Team USA debut, that environment is either going to sharpen everything or reveal the gaps. There is no neutral ground in San Juan. She has been in hostile environments before. She has played in arenas where half the crowd came hoping she would fail. She has taken charges, hit threes from the logo, and made passes that make even experienced coaches double-check the replay. The pressure isn't new, the uniform is. And a new uniform, especially one that says USA.
We're getting an exclusive first look at the jerseys in their inaugural WNBA season,
which changes the weight of every moment on the floor. This tournament is not just about securing a World Cup spot, it's a proof of concept. Can the biggest individual story in women's basketball translate to the biggest team stage? That answer is coming in March, and the basketball world is not going to look away. Caitlyn Clark walked into the WNBA and changed what the league looked like. She walked into the Olympics conversation and changed how people measured who deserved to be there. Now she's walking into Team USA, and the same pattern is happening again. Every room she enters ends up looking different on the way out. That's not hype. That's a track record. The qualifying tournament in San Juan is 1 week. The CBA fight is still unresolved. The NBC platform is live. The debate about her place in this sport is nowhere near finished. All of those threads are about to collide in one very loud, very public moment. Drop USA in the comments if you think she starts at point guard. And tell us honestly, is this the beginning of something bigger, or just the next chapter in a story that was always going to get here eventually? Stay with us. The real story never stops.